Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Zebra Talk, the podcast where we go beyond the stripes and shine a little light onto the lives and the untold stories of the people who slide on their knees and count the threes. That's right, I'm talking about the referees. And today, we're joined by somebody who, like many of these people, doesn't really need an introduction, but I'll give one to you anyway, just in case you aren't familiar with him, or maybe you haven't seen him in a few years. He was a huge integral part of the early 2000s in WWE refereeing, and he has made an absolutely astounding career for himself, getting booked all over the world, more countries than I could even count. Please welcome Justin King. How you doing, Justin?
Good. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for being on the podcast. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me, man.
I hear you're heading off to Egypt here in a couple of days.
Yeah, so it hasn't been discussed out loud yet, but you're the first one.
Oh man, cat out of the bag. I did not mean to throw that out there.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I was in talks with them, and things are coming forth. I can't give you the dates or anything like that because I don't know anything else other than I am booked.
Very cool. Well, congratulations. Is this going to be your first time going to the country, or?
Yes, my very first time in this country. I have worked with the guy who runs this. I worked with him over in QPW, so things are looking up. But like I said, I don't know all the details of it. I just know that I have been asked to join the team, and I am very grateful, as usual, to add another country to my resume.
Absolutely. Congratulations. Speaking of your resume, we've talked about it multiple times in the past. It kind of, your reputation precedes you as far as like world traveling referee. Do you have like a running list of all the places that you've been to at this point?
That's kind of a running list of most of the places that I've been. So I took a 3-year break after WWE. I didn't think that I would ever go back to wrestling. I actually quit.
Sure.
And then got the call. India happened, 2016. Kali, and I've been with Kali since, and things are awesome with that. And we've been on a standstill. Obviously, WWE's been doing some stuff with India, so that's kind of been on a standstill. But
hiatus, yeah.
Yep, just because of that going on, and the international superstars now getting with WWE. Sure. And congratulations to all those Indians that have made it. The big tall guys, Shanky and Suki. I got the opportunity to work with them. I got the opportunity to work with Lexi LaRoute, the guy that did the match with Finn Balor.
Very cool.
And and there's a girl down there named, I think her name is Davina, and she was the first Indian to get signed.
Yeah.
With WWE, and so I got to work with all of them, and I got to do some matches, especially with Shanky, because it was him and Kali together, and I did all the main events, obviously. So I spent a lot of time with Shanky, and then Suki came along, and he's huge. Yeah. And so that was the first one, and then I got South America.
Before we move off of India, you spent so much time there. Have you picked up any like Punjabi or Hindi or anything like that, or is it still kind of you with a translator?
And it kind of with the translator. The only thing I know is Sukriya, which is thank you. I say that to everybody, and it's so hard to learn that language. That's an intricate language. We always have, but they speak English. Most speak English, and if they can't, then there's at least 1 or 2 or even 10 wrestlers that can speak.
Yeah.
Punjab and/or.
When I was in Japan, some people were asking me the same thing. They were like, how'd you communicate with the Japanese wrestlers that you were working with? And I'm like, well, not every Japanese wrestler that you're going to run into speaks exclusively Japanese. So like, even if the people that you're working directly with don't speak English, you're going to find somebody else in the locker room that does, So.
It's all about translations, and with Kali and them, most of those guys, they do know English enough to do what we need them to do, and so that worked out great for us because they're especially with that particular company CWE, most of our international talent face the Indian talent. You only have like 14 American and Canadian talent that go over, and then they got the rest are Indian. So some of our matches were all Indian.
Right.
As long as I got the finish and things like that, I really don't, there ain't really much else to talk about.
Yeah, right.
Anyway,
I mean, what else do you really need to know? Like everything else is just kind of autopilot and you're just reacting, right?
In India, I work in India. Kali would have 14 matches. He scheduled me 12 out of 14.
Yeah.
So,
you're good. Go.
Yeah, I don't have time it's hard to communicate with every single person, especially when you're going back and forth to the ring. I just actually got all the finishes in the ring.
Sure.
Tell me what you're doing real quick while I'm checking on it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I need to know. So
So from India, where do we head off to?
For India, I do India, and then I get booked for South America, Lima, Peru, for a place called Imperial Lucha Libre.
Very
And
cool.
they had an inaugural show, and they brought me in for that one. And that was a huge show that had Berto Del Rio, Carlito, it had Matt Seidel. I mean, you name it. It had Pinta, Ray Phoenix, Matt and Jeff Hardy. I mean, it was a huge, huge, huge show. And I was lucky enough to do that. So I went to South America. And then from South America, I went to, there's so many. I went to Kuwait. I did Ronnie Coleman, the big bodybuilder.
Yeah.
It was his birthday, and that was it was his birthday. So he had a boxing, wrestling, bodybuilding, and MMA all in this one
Kuwait.
in Kuwait in this one big venue. And so
Very cool.
I did my tryout for QPW in Kuwait because the promoter for QPW was in charge of the wrestlers for Kuwait. So and that's how I got in with Ali Marafi, and and then then after that I go to I did some stints in Nova Scotia. So in New Brunswick, Moncton and Fredericton, New Brunswick. So I've been dealing with that side of Canada. I got signed with South Africa. So I went to Pretoria, South Africa.
Yeah, I think you were the one who linked up Zebra Talk with our South African brothers, Mohammed. I can't even remember his last name.
Yeah. Mohammed and Tace.
Yeah.
Mohammed and Tace, and I trained them in South Africa. We did some training with them, and they did their first ever like big match. So Mohammed had been actually working for 14 years, but he never really had the training experience. He never really had anybody that can train him and put him where he needed to be. So he was like my major project. Tace was brand new, so it was easy for me to break him in. The way, I'm not gonna say my way is the right way, but it's good enough, obviously. And so having these guys with me, that was a good learning experience with them. And then on to Qatar, and I debuted for Super Slam 2. And that's Ali's big deal in QPW, and that was a big turnout, and that had Kevin Nash and Mark Henry, Eric Bischoff, and you name it. It was stars everywhere. Rob Van Dam, Berto Del Rio, and there's so many stars that did that show. Matt Seidel and Apollo. Apollo's an international superstar that most people don't know about, but he's mega over international. And then Lloyd Anoni, he's big overseas, and Chris Rabber. And so I've been fortunate enough to work these several different places, and I've been in talks with a couple other countries. It's just a matter of if they come to fruition. This Egypt thing is, like I said, I don't know much about it, but what I can say is to be asked to do that, that's a big deal, because this is going to be there.
Anytime somebody offers to have you come from, another continent, that's a huge amount of faith that they're putting in you,
Yeah. And also I did Dominican Republic. I just got asked to do the Bahamas. So I got some stuff that's just coming out of the woodworks for me.
Yeah. It sounds like it.
I keep myself very occupied. I still work in my restaurant when I'm home, but when it comes to wrestling, my restaurant's so good to me. They allow me to leave. They allow me to do what I'm going to do and come back. So, so I just try to keep myself as focused and as positive as I possibly can. And my goal is to, every time I work these countries, work with those referees, because most of them have never had any formal training. So I go in and train them and then do the show.
Do you find that, you're being sought out more now that you've been to so many places and you've established the reputation, or is it you're still like searching for places and you're doing most of the legwork to get yourself there?
Most of these places have fallen in my lap just because of my reputation and who I am and who I'm associated with.
Yeah.
And I'm learning in this business that you can associate yourself with anybody you want to, but there's consequences and repercussions for every action that you do. So I always try to keep myself surrounded by the most dedicated, the most positive, and the most driven people in this business outside of the actual the powerhouses of wrestling. I can tell you one guy who is phenomenal. His name is Peter Smith, Brody Still. He's absolutely on a different level of wrestling.
Sure.
He's 50 and he's moving like he's 25, 30.
It's
He's a
crazy
big
when you run
man.
into guys like that, like Gangrel or like Tim Storm that like are just still like, cranking it out. And it's just like, how are you doing this?
He is such a good person. His mind is separate as business. And when I met him, we both think alike. We both didn't speak to each other till after the first show in India because it's a respect thing. I'm very quiet when I
Mhm.
get around people that I don't know because I don't want to say anything that's going to be dumb or
Sure.
make myself out there.
It's
And we
definitely
didn't
like from experience in the business. Yeah.
just learn to keep your mouth shut, keep going, introduce yourself. But that was it. It was just a hello. And then after the first match with him and Kali, he said, I never had a referee like you. And I said, I never told you I was a good referee because I didn't want you to think I was cocky.
Sure.
But I told him, I said, I wanted you to know that after that match, that I was going to work my tail off to get to where I needed to be and get the respect of you, not because of what I said to you, but how I did it.
Yeah.
So we've
It's
been
funny
best
that you
friends
mentioned
since.
that. I feel like, a very telling sign of, like the quality of a wrestler or a referee is the, people that will never really admit like how good or bad they are. The minute that you hear somebody say, I'm really good at blah, 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 it's like, you kind of have that question mark over your head. Like, are you really?
A lot of people will say about me, they'll say that I'm cocky and arrogant. And that's so far from the truth when it comes to wrestling. In my regular life, yeah, I'm cocky and arrogant because the people I'm around, that's how it is in Illinois. You have to make your way. But with wrestling, it's like, I don't want to be cocky and arrogant. I just want to be the best or close to the best. I want my name to go down when I'm done wrestling, when I'm done with wrestling. I want my name to be able to, for people to say, you know what? Justin King was one of those referees that you'll never forget. Like a Mike Chioda or an Earl Hebner, or, these names that stick out, Charles Robinson and all these names, John Cone, Chad Patton. These names will resonate forever
That are
because they've been around
synonymous
forever.
with wrestling and refereeing. Yeah, absolutely.
And I had such a small run in WWE because of my injuries. But I can tell you right now, for only working in WWE for 2 years, my name is out
Sure.
there. So
Let's
grateful for that.
let's wind things back a little bit and find out how you actually got yourself into WWE. Let's start with, like where you're from. Talk a little bit about your experience, with you and your brother growing up. Obviously, for those who don't know, Justin is a twin. He has a twin brother, Robert, who's also a referee. Let's go ahead and dive into a little bit of that, how you guys got involved in professional wrestling.
So my mom was always a huge wrestling fan. That was her escape, from reality. And she used to go to shows in the 70s and 80s before we were born with my grandma. And as we turned about 3 to 5 or something like that, my mom started taking us to shows. So I vividly remember my very first show was 1990. And I remember it being Bret Hart versus Rick Martel and Demolition versus Andre the Giant and Haku. And
Very
I got to
cool.
meet
Very
Exile
cool.
Jim Duggan. So, that was at the Peoria Civic Center. We're from Peoria, Illinois. We lived there for 14 years, and then we moved to a small town called Rantoul, Illinois. No one knows where it's at, but they was there. Actually, let's back up in Peoria. I met Chad and Jack, Chad Patton and Jack Doan. I met them when I was 12.
Sure.
And from that
And they
moment
were
on,
just getting started.
They were just getting started. Chad and them. Actually, Jack was repping. Chad was just ring crew at that point. So, meeting them, that was like a changing point in my life because at that point it's like, oh my God, look at how happy they are. Look at their lives. They get to travel. They get to do wrestling is fun. At that point, it looked fun to me. Like, this looks like how do you get paid to have fun? At 12, you're thinking your life, your lifespan. I told my mom at 12 what I do with WWE. Now, at that point, obviously it's a dream.
Right.
You never know if it's going to ever really happen. My mom was very supportive of us always, but she thought it was a dream too. And then you fast forward to about 22, and I'm starting to talk to Jack and Chad more often because at this point we're full on diehard fans. We go on every show in Illinois, and Chad said, "Well, Chad and Jack said, well, why don't you break into business?" And that's so we
like,
found
you're here all the time anyway. Why don't you get involved and get paid for it?
So we go into our mall here in Champaign, Illinois, and we see a guy with wrestling belts. He was getting them fixed or whatever it was. And both of us freak out. Me and Robert like, whoa, wrestling belts. Where are those from?
We're
Those are
huge
not
wrestling fans. What's up?
right. Those are not normal belts. Like, where
Sure.
did you get those from? And he says, hey man, we got a company, New Breed Wrestling Alliance.
Mhm.
Oh, well, and me and Robert say, oh, we're referees, even though we're not referees. And so they book us, and Robert starts July of 19, and then I start August of 19.
Mhm.
Excuse me, not of 19. Let me back this up. July of 06, Robert
Gotcha.
starts.
Sure.
And then I start August of 06. I started August 19th of 2006.
Got it.
And so for 2 years, I just was working whatever I could, man. Getting paid $40 to drive 5-6 hours, doing the deal. And
I don't know anything about that. What?
of
Driving
course,
long
no, right? So
hours?
you driving long hours and then having to come back and go to work. And at the time, I was a
Mhm.
manager of my restaurant, so I was making good money,
Sure.
but I was taking them days off to get the experience. And then I did a
Right.
match with Sean Davari and Eugene. They were both recently released from WWE at that point.
Yeah.
And then I used that match, and I used a match with Tyler Black, which is now Seth Rollins. I did I did two of his matches and one match of that. And in 2008, I heard rumblings that Vince was looking for a black referee.
Sure.
So I sent my stuff in. I called for like 30 straight days. Annoying. Finally get an answer, and
For those of you out there listening, caution if you want to go down this route, like you can
don't call for 30 days, man.
Yeah.
I just did it because I was annoying as hell, and I wanted the job so bad. I was so passionate about getting in there. I called every day, finally get an answer. And when I get that answer, they say, I was going by on the indies. I was going by Shad Tally. Robert was going by Chad Tally. So Shad and Chad. And they hated the name. So like I said, so when I called, I said, oh, this is Shad Tally. It was like, that is not your real name. What is your real name? This is Justin King. They said, drop the name, I'm like, okay. They gave me a tryout on, go figure. I started August 19th of 06. They gave me my tryout on August 18th and 19th of 08.
Huh. Funny how things it's such a cliche in wrestling, but like things coming full circle, like there's so many instances of that happening.
My first day on tryouts, I get up there and I'm scared. And Chad and Jack don't speak to me. They didn't say much to me. I think
they don't want to catch that heat.
unless I make it, they don't want that heat.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, my first night, Johnny pulls me to the side and he ribbed me. He's like, "Are you taking pictures of my talent?" I'm like, "Who? Who's your talent?" Like Cena. They thought, he said, "Are you taking pictures of John Cena?" I'm like, "No." Like, why would I take pictures of Cena? Like, are you sure? And I'm like, I said, not to be rude, but if I'm gonna take pictures of anybody, it ain't gonna be Cena. It's gonna be Santino because he's my favorite. Santino's my favorite wrestler. So if I'm gonna take pictures, it's gonna be of Santino. Say, here's my phone. Open my phone up. It's like, here you go, check it out. I don't have anything. He's like, be ready to go tomorrow. So the next day, I did a trial match with a guy named Mike Toller, and Evan Bourne, which is Matt Sydal.
Right.
And it was about 2 minutes long, and everybody's standing out there. Taker's out there. Vince and them are out there. You got Arn and Dean and all these people.
That is such a terrifying experience. Like, obviously, I haven't worked for the company, but like I've gotten to do the tryout matches before, like the tapings and stuff. And like, they sure don't prepare you for you're going to be in front of the whole locker room. Go do your thing.
Yeah, so all these people are standing out there, and Johnny tells me, get in the ring and do it. So once I rang the bell, I said, you know what? I thought to myself, once I ring this bell, no one exists. That's because that's how you do it in wrestling. Did my 2-minute match. They said, get out the ring. We're done with you. Then I sat there for 9 hours.
Yep.
Just didn't say nothing to nobody. Just sitting there. And as I'm getting ready to leave, I say to Johnny, I thank John, because John Laurinaitis is very influential in my career. Sure. I don't care how you put it. The man took care of me. I'm forever grateful for him. And anybody got something bad to say about Johnny, I'm sorry, but I love the man personally. Sure. I can't speak for everybody else. I can't. But what I can say is, he told me that I was the drizzling shits, and he says, but we're going to send you down to FCW. We're going to offer you the contract. And they offered me the contract 2 years to the day that I started the business. So
how did that feel? How was that feeling, like going from like, just the shock of like being thrown into the deep end, like reffing in front of literally everybody. You said Taker's standing out there, Vince is standing out there, to, sitting around waiting for like almost a whole day. And then finally they're like, yeah, you did it. Go.
At the time, I was engaged to be married. So, me and my ex-wife, we were on the path of trying to get some kind of greatness going. And I've always been one that's determined. Well, I don't believe in failure.
Mhm.
If I fell one way, I got to go somewhere else. I mean, I'm always on the go. So thinking that I was just doing this tryout, I thought it was going to be a resume booster for me to go on the Indies. I never thought that I would get the job.
Yeah.
And then when I got the job, it was like all the hard work that you put in, it's finally happened. And me and her cried together because it was like, we're reaching the dream that we've always wanted.
Yeah.
And it was just such a shock to me. And to tell Robert, tell my brother, who, at the time he was in a relationship and he really didn't want to do the traveling part. So he didn't do the tryouts or nothing.
Right.
It was just such a big thing, to be told that you're moving to Florida, that you're going to be starting your life.
Right.
And that wrestling's going to be your life every single day.
Yeah.
So going into it, I was so pumped. And 2 months later, I went down October 23rd, and I got down there, and my very first experience in FCW was not a good one. So I was late for class. I didn't realize they never told me that 15 minutes early is on time. Anything else is late. So I started to learn real fast the rules.
That military mindset of 15 minutes is you're on time, 10 minutes is you're running late, and if you're actually there on time, you might as well go home.
Right, and I was 5 minutes early.
Yeah.
For the call time, which is definitely 100% late.
Mm-hmm.
And I got called out in front of the entire class on my very first day, which rightfully so. They needed to do that so they can break me in and let me know. And Steve Kern, Steve was really like a father figure to me. And he was so rough on me in the beginning, but I think it's just because he wanted so much more of me. Sure. And he expected so much more of me. But at the time, they don't really tell you what they want you to do. You got to kind of figure it out for yourself. And then we finally have, 1 month after getting in there, I got a call that I was going to get fired. So I was there for a month. I get the call from Ty Bailey that says, you're not working hard enough. We're going to release you. And I'm like, release me? And I'm like, what do you mean I'm not working hard enough?
I just got here. Yeah.
Right. So he breaks it down for me, what they said, So I call Steve and I say, yo, give me another chance. I'll do what I have to do. And he was like, you asked too many questions. He's like, just do it. Yeah. I'm like, well, I asked just because I want to know. I don't want to make mistakes. He's like, you got to make mistakes. In wrestling, you don't ask. You trial and error. Yeah. So I took over all of FCW. That was how I went from.
I don't want to glance over that real quick though. I don't want to miss that, because that was a really good nugget for the refs that are listening that are eventually going to move on to WWE at some point or anywhere else. You'd mentioned that he said you asked too many questions, and that in wrestling you don't ask questions. In wrestling, you have trial and error. Go ahead.
And that's the WWE way. I don't know anywhere else. I never worked anywhere else. But what I can say is in WWE, when you get into that structure, you have to learn to fit in. You have to learn your place. You have to make yourself fit into that mold.
Sure. Yeah.
By watching and learning, trial and error. I messed up my very first match in FCW. I counted the 3 count, counted too fast, counted 3 count. It wasn't the finish. Then I had to go back. Oh my God, it's 2 count, 2 count, 2 count. Heat, instant heat.
Yeah.
You learn over time. It's like, okay, there's yourself, and then there's everything else that goes into making that entity work.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I started cleaning the rings every day. I started doing the bathrooms every day. I started putting up banners. I started making ropes by myself. I was coming in at 9 a.m. and leaving at 9 p.m. And everybody else would come in at 11 o'clock and leave at 2 or 3 o'clock. But you have to make yourself important.
Yeah.
And by November, I had a release call, and by December, I was right there in the office with Dusty and Steve and Tom and Norman and Billy Kidman.
Earning a place.
I earned a place, and I did that, and I earned the respect of every single one of my peers. They knew they could come to me for anything. And that was a staple print that I put forth for all the referees going forward, because before then, the referees would come down, they would hang out and do what they wanted to do, but they were already on TV, so they didn't have to put in no effort. Me and Spider were brand new. Rod Zapata, we were brand new. And I was the lowest on the totem pole, so I had to make myself visible in a way that people will respect me and know that I'm not there to harm the business, but to help the business.
Right.
And I did that from November all the way till I went on TV in July.
Mhm.
So I was probably the fastest referee to debut because of my energy, my drive, my commitment.
Mhm.
I was doing production meetings with them and helping Dusty with promo class. And I mean, literally anything they wanted me to do, I did it. I ran the cameras.
Which
I
is
did
really what
everything.
you have to do as a referee. Like obviously you kind of like learned that once you got to WWE, but like it's kind of what we have to do now everywhere. Like there's so many good referees that are on the indies that if you really want to be successful, that's something that you really need to do. You need to become involved with camera work and production and the ring crew and like every facet of the game. Before we move off to like you debuting on
Yeah,
TV.
sure, 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 sure.
Are there any particular matches that stand out from your time in FCW or any particular like fond memories that you have?
So I guess I guess it was such a brotherhood there that I really enjoyed all my matches.
Mhm.
And after a while, we got started doing the main events, and there was one match, low key versus remember Escobar, Eric
Mhm.
Escobar.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was low key versus Eric
So
Escobar
you're
in
in
this
this
title
class that's
match.
going to become like the first season of NXT, essentially,
Um,
like the original NXT.
because the original NXT came right after I was injured. So yes, I'm working down there with Heath Slater, who's a champion at one point.
Right.
Tyler Rex, Gabe,
Gabby
Gabby,
and
yeah, and all these guys, they're champions. Justin Angel, and
right.
with Justin Gabriel, and there's so much. There was so much talent in that
Yeah.
pool. Sheamus was a
I
champion,
think it's really
and Drew.
easy for people to overlook that class, because like they talk so much about the what is it, UIPW class with like, Batista and Cena and Brock and Shelton and all those guys. And then
Yeah,
obviously the class that comes after where we're at right now is like, the Seth Rollins and the Roman Reigns and all that stuff. And I feel like people really just don't give enough credit to that initial, crop that kind of like paved the way, changing everything that's happened over the last 10 years.
well, you got to think about this as okay. So we had Wade Barrett and Drew McIntyre. They were the Empire.
Yeah.
These two were tag team at one point. Then
Yeah.
Drew goes on to be the champion. Then they got Sheamus that's champion. And all these guys that made it to WWE, we all started in the same mold. We're all young, we're all fresh, we're all trying to change the landscape
Right.
of taking OVW and Deep South and bringing it to FCW, making it one.
Yeah.
And then you got your Kurt Hawkins who's coming back down. He almost got released, but then he comes back on his own dime, does his own thing to get himself better, and he's in that class. Trent Beretta,
Yeah.
and there's so many
Just a
names
real
that came.
all-star class that like are still just rocking and rolling on all forms of wrestling right now, from like all over the indies, all over like televised national companies. Like it's
You got to think
crazy
about
to see
the
the influence that like one class of professional wrestling can have on the business. But go ahead.
even with the girls. You had the Bella twins. You had Alicia Fox. You had Rosa Mendez. You had so many names that came from that crop. AJ was a part of that. Darren Young and AJ. I was there for their tryout.
Yeah.
I did their tryout in 2009. They got picked up, and they come in, and then you got like there's so many names that came from that crop that ended up being champions. And that is something that people don't. That's why I'm so glad they did the FCW documentary,
Yeah.
because it was
Absolutely.
so much. Biggie Langston, Big E coming into fruition and never having a match in his life. Titus O'Neil never having a match in his life. The Usos came from that crop of people. So I mean, there was Tarver. I mean, there were just names everywhere.
Yeah.
Byron Saxton. Byron Saxton used to wrestle. Before he became a commentator, he was a wrestler and
Yeah, I mean,
really
go
good
back and
wrestler.
watch the old NXT. Go back and watch the old FCW. Like he was really good. I was
Yeah.
surprised that not surprised because he's a very good personality and he's very well spoken. But like, yeah, he's a pretty decent wrestler. So
Yeah, and the reason they put him in that position is because him and Dusty have such chemistry together, and he's
that
got a
makes
degree in
sense.
He's got a degree in journalism, so that makes a huge difference. You know what I mean? But what an amazing amount of talent. I
Yeah,
enjoyed going to work every day.
I'll bet.
I did. That's phenomenal for me.
So let's go ahead and move forward. You're going up to TV now at this point. Talk about that experience. What was your first televised match? Do you have any like standout favorites while you were there? Like
Oh
take
yeah.
me through the whole process of your 2 years while you were on television.
So I debuted July 13th, 2009. I initially asked for a raise because I felt like I was killing myself, and they said no. And then after they said no, next thing you know, they told me the reason they said no is because I was debuting, and I
Sure.
didn't know that. So I get the call. I was getting married actually. I got married in June of 2009. I debuted July 13th.
Hmm.
So at the end of June, and so I rushed back home. Johnny says you're debuting. Your first shot's gonna be Miami and Orlando. And I just thought I was going up for dark matches. I didn't think that I was actually debuting.
Sure.
So I get up to TV. They pull me in the office. They say your first match is going to be Drew versus Sheamus in a dark match. Drew McIntyre versus Sheamus in a dark match.
Right.
I said, okay, cool. That's a FCW match. I don't really care about that.
I've done this
Then they
match a million
say,
times. It'll be fine.
oh yeah. Then they say, oh, but by the way, you're semi-main tonight too. You're working Big Show versus Evan Bourne in semi-main event. And I'm like, uh-oh, okay.
You're like,
That's
excuse me, what?
right. Because now I'm going to be in front of live TV, Raw. I'm debuting on Raw.
Yeah.
Live. Never been live
The
in
big
my
deal.
life. It's the big deal. It can either make or break me.
Have you been televised at this point? Have you been mic'd up and everything? Like, have you worked with all the equipment and everything?
Yeah, because FCW we had to for TVs. We did TV every Thursday for Bright House Network. We did Florida Championship Wrestling for Bright House Network. So we had the earpieces, and we had Billy Kim. Billy was our, who does now. He was there in FCW with us. Which he's an amazing
I've
person.
heard from so many people how great he is as a producer and such an awesome person to have in your ear, and hilarious apparently.
Yeah, he's so straightforward and he's funny. He's all out funny. He used to rib me completely, but he's such an amazing person to go to. He'll tell you when he needs to tell you something bad. He'll tell you. He'll just straight shoot with you. Sure. And if you do something good, he lets you know. Man, Billy's just that. He's an all around good dude. He deserves to keep his job forever. But I got up there, did a Big Show and Evan Bourne, and I never worked with someone so tall. Big Show.
Yeah,
it's hard to get times.
Yeah,
when I'm 5'10" and he's 7 foot. And when we got to the back, he made sure to let me know that I got to talk a little bit louder. I didn't know. It's just a learning experience on that first day, and my knees were shaking, and the match itself. And if you watch that match back, I actually it's on YouTube. We watch a Big Show versus Evan Bourne. You'll see the difference of me first starting to rep on that first episode to where I'm at now. It's a totally different referee.
Why don't you throw out that date again one more time, just in case people want to look it up?
So it's a Big Show versus Evan Bourne, 7/13 of 2009.
Cool.
And
that's
Raw. So that's a Raw. So and Kofi Kingston interferes in that match. And Air Boom is starting to be born at that point. So
cool.
The second match was Friday Night SmackDown, and it was Kane versus R-Truth. Now here's another guy.
That's 7 feet tall. Yeah.
Right. And so again, they don't tell you anything. You gotta learn on your own, make mistakes. Yeah. I touched Kane during the match.
Ooh.
I grabbed Kane.
No.
Which is a big no.
Yeah.
So he pushed me.
Mm-hmm. But you get up in his face after that?
Nope. I stayed away from after that.
Good.
The push let me know that I was in the wrong. It was a type of push to let me know you're in the wrong.
It was kind of one of those subtle pushes that was like, hey brother, knock it off.
It was subtle, but it was hard enough to let me know not to ever do that again.
Yeah.
And when we got to the back, Glenn is so nice. He's the nicest person on the roster.
Sure.
So when he got to the back, he gave me a hug, said, congratulations. And he told me, with my character, you can't do that. And I should have known, but it's in the heat of the moment. You don't think about it. So
I had a similar experience with Lance Archer when we were doing Ring Warriors. I was very, very green at the time, and I had never worked with anybody that large. And he kind of did one of the, I'm going to kill you kind of things. And my trainers, to their credit, they were great trainers, but they had really drilled in my head, don't let anybody ever punk you because you're the person who's in the stripes or whatever. And he kind of pulled me aside and was like, hey brother, you wouldn't do that to Undertaker. I'm not Undertaker, but you know what I'm saying? I'm a monster. You can't stand up to me like that. I'm like, yeah, I totally get it. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, you learn that. And you can still be a director referee from a distance. Yeah. Trial and error, you make the mistake, you never do it again.
Yeah.
And in my case, I made a big mistake on that day. And it wasn't big enough to me to get in trouble, just enough for me to know that I'll never ever do nothing like that again.
Yeah.
So those are my first two matches, and that was like I said, that was 7. 7/17 of 2009, Kane versus R-Truth.
Very cool.
So
What's your fondest memory of reffing for WWE? What match really just stands out when you think back about one that was just like it was ripping and rolling, everybody was on it, the crowd was hot, and you just walked out of that ring feeling like $1,000,000?
2 matches.
Sure.
Number one, Daniel Bryan versus Dolph Ziggler, bragging rights 2010. That was I just come back from injury.
Mm-hmm.
That match was a limp throughout the entire match.
Yeah,
because I'm still injured at that point. And it was 20 minutes of just amazing work. Lots of
Daniel
falsies.
Bryan and Dolph Ziggler, like, yeah, what do you expect, right?
That it was the Intercontinental Champion versus U.S. Champion, because it was Raw versus SmackDown type thing. They were half rope, half colors.
Sure.
And what an amazing, amazing night. And Vicky Guerrero's out there, and me and her have interaction, and she's one of my best friends. And it was just such a great feeling to be back from injury and to do that and to be able to have that match. And
absolutely,
that is my favorite match of my entire career.
Yeah,
is that match. The other favorite match that I had, and I worked a lot of matches with John Cena. A lot of people don't know this, but I did the main event with John Cena so much on house shows that I was like Cena's ref, because the crew ref has to go get ready to break down the ring. Right. There's normally only 2 referees. So I spent a lot of time with Cena, and I want to tell you what a professional. I'm talking about from start to finish. Him, The Miz, and CM Punk, when I'm working with those 3 at that time, they were amazing at what they did. It was like a walk in the park working with them.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
It's crazy when you meet those people that are just like on another level of like experience and competency and professionalism, like you're saying. I've only been fortunate enough a lot of people have mixed feelings about this person. I've never had a negative experience with him. I was fortunate enough to ref a Loki match once, and the prep that we did in the back leading up to the match blew my mind. How detailed he was about everything that he wanted taken care of, how much input he was giving to me, how much he was receiving from me. It was such a a culture shock almost from what I have been used to on the indies, with people just either being like, oh, we'll just count 3, or giving me some kind of version of whatever it was. But he walked me through step by step by step, knew exactly where he wanted me, what he wanted me to do. It was crazy. So yeah, I hear you.
Well, I will say this about Loki. I don't care what people think of him. That is a locker room leader. If I ever saw one.
Absolutely.
When he was in FCW, man, he was definitely a leader in the locker room. Something go wrong, he'd be right there to tell you. He would shut it down, and he's such a professional.
Sure.
He's on a different level than most people.
Absolutely.
I think that he didn't get the justice that he deserved in WWE, but that just added to him going to other places and doing bigger things. It just wasn't for him. Yeah. But I agree with you 100%. So my second match that I had, let's talk about Cena and them, but just because I work with them so much, and a lot of people are like, well, why is that not your favorite? It's not my favorite because it was never on TV. It was never public. It was never televised. No one ever. If
nobody's seen it, then does it even exist? Yeah.
Right. No one ever saw me rep a Cena match. Nobody. But I did get the opportunity to ref Randy Orton on Raw.
Yeah.
And back then, it's easier now. All these referees get the opportunity to work with anybody.
Sure.
But back then, you had your pecking order of referees,
right,
of who works TV matches here and there and there,
Who else are you working with at the time? We haven't even really touched on that very much.
Up top on WWE.
Yeah, once you debuted, who were the other refs on the roster?
So the referees on the roster for me when I first debuted,
you got Robinson and Patton, and I'm sure Spider was up there with you. Go ahead.
Up there yet?
Hadn't got there yet. Okay,
no,
probably John Cone. Go ahead.
So it was Cone, Charles, Chad, Jack, Mike, Scott, and myself.
Very cool. That's a man. People talk about Mount Rushmores of referees. That obviously it's too many names, but that is an all-star cast of referees at the time. But yeah, so
just the 7 of us.
Yeah.
And so
it's hard to get on a high-profile match. You're saying, so you got an opportunity with Randy. Go ahead.
Why do you think I became the Divas rep for so long? I was with the girls all the time. I became the Divas ref. Everybody's like, oh my God, the black ref is a Divas ref. You know, it's their favorite monikers. Black ref, Diva ref, black ref, Diva ref. You know, because I work with the girls all the time. But I did get the opportunity to work with Randy Orton. He had a match versus Drew McIntyre on Raw. I don't know the exact date of it, but I know it's on YouTube. Sure. Monday Night Raw, Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre, 2011 it was. So I know it's 2011. And I get the opportunity to work with Randy. And what a game changer when you are in front of 15,000 people and you got Randy. He's got them in the palm of his hands, and he's got Drew on the ropes getting ready to drop him with that DDT. And I'm counting in his face, and he's counting with me. And I mean, what an out of body experience. And I get to the back, and I'm so worried that he's gonna be mad at me just because I never worked with anyone on that caliber at that level live. When we got to the back, he said to me, I said, Randy, because we were really close. We were cool with each other. I was a part of that little group of people, so I could talk to Randy about anything. Sure. Just walked up to him. I was like, Randy, how'd I do? He said, I didn't even know you were in the ring.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate compliment.
Very cool. Very cool
experience. For any referee out there, if a talent tells you, I didn't even notice you out there, that's the ultimate compliment that you can get in this profession. That means you're doing the job effectively to the point where you're so good that they don't even recognize that you're there, except for the counts that they hear.
Absolutely. And that's the job that we're there to do. You know, we're not there to be a character and to, you know, like pull focus from what's going on. We're just there to do our job and make sure that things are safe and make sure that things are, you know, done the way that they're supposed to be done.
And I will never be a character. I don't care who does it. I don't overreact to moves or none of that. I'm a referee that will never do that. Now, if people do it, it's fine. It's not that. Not saying it's wrong.
I don't really mind it so much. Like, you know, obviously, like whatever company that you're working for is going to dictate what they want you to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like the WWE, I don't do that because I know I used to get in trouble. You know, you get in trouble for stuff like that. The only person that really overreacted to moves in WWE was Charles. Out of my 7, you know, Charles was the man to do that. That was his thing. You know, Kyoto had his moments where he would do the 2 count like this, so nobody else can do this. You know, and he wore the armband. Nobody else could wear the armband. It's just different monikers for different referees.
Sure.
So I never got involved in none of that because I was too afraid to get in trouble.
It was funny when I went to do a tryout before I had gone and done that. I never went to an actual PC tryout. I just did a tryout match before tapings. But I was such a fan of Kyoto and had studied him for so long that I had intentionally adopted that on the indies as like an ode to him. The minute that I did my first match there, they were like, nope. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm never doing that again.
Right. Because if you did this, you know, Kyoto did that was his thing.
That's his thing. Yeah. They're like, no, that's Kyoto's. Stop.
Yep.
Like, okay.
And you get in trouble for stuff like that. It's not normal trouble. It's like, why are you doing this? Are you trying to be Mike Kyoto? Do you think you're Mike Kyoto?
Exactly.
No, I don't think I'm Mike Kyoto. You know, so you learn your own style. And my style was very basic, generic, but I had my own wit about me. You know, my falsies are different than everybody else's.
Sure.
You know, I worked hard to stand out and look different than everybody else. Well, I did look different than everybody else, but I'm saying as far as like movements, I wanted to make sure that when Justin King got in the ring, Justin King did his job to the fullest to where people could say, hey, you know what? Justin did his job tonight. You know, if you're watching referees, like, damn, there's really nothing that can be said. You know, and that was my goal every day that I went out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about favorites. Do you have a favorite kind of match? What kind of match do you really, really like to sink your teeth into?
Tag team matches, probably.
Nice. We hear a lot of people dog on tag team matches, you know, and I feel like that's an inexperienced thing. But go ahead and tell me why you like tag team matches so much.
Because you have to be really experienced to work on a tag team match and be able to be that 5th person and understand the rules of the tag team matches. And what a lot of people get the misconception of a tag team matches is they have to be overly hyper in those matches. But if you stand in that neutral corner and you're watching both people and you can see what's going on here and here, you don't need to do anything else. And, you know, when the heels are doing their thing, it's so fun to communicate with that heel and let me know it's okay to turn around now and all that other stuff. And I just got a drive for tag team matches. Absolutely. I'm one of the very few people that love tag team matches. I absolutely love
I will always say that my favorite is a technical singles, but I absolutely love tag team wrestling. I love when you're in there with four people that really know exactly what they're doing, they're experienced, they're a quote unquote real tag team. I'm not a big fan of singles wrestlers getting put together in tag teams. I like
No,
real
yeah.
tag teams
So,
that, have that chemistry with each other. And then you can do the improv with each other. Like there's nothing worse than when you see a heel run over to the babyface corner, bit the babyface, the ref goes right over to the corner, and the babyface doesn't try to get in.
yeah, no.
It's like, what are you
So,
doing?
a lot of people, a lot of times I tell these referees that are inexperienced that I do train, when that heel hits him off, it's up to the babyface to get in. You're
Yeah,
not even supposed to worry about that until he gets in. You're supposed
absolutely.
to concentrate on the match until he gets in the ring. That's
Definitely.
the misconception that most people have. Instead of turning around and going to the babyface, you're giving the spot away at that point.
Sure. Yeah, you're blowing
So
it.
you just
Learning
you're
moment for me.
blowing the
Absolutely.
you blow the entire spot when you do that.
Yeah.
You're supposed to stick with the action inside the ring. That's why you got force. That's why you're in that square circle. You have to pay attention to what's in the square circle. Whatever's going on the outside, unless you got two people beating each other up, you got to tell them to get back to their corners. Outside doesn't matter.
That's
You know,
why, this kind of conversational setting is so important because like this is a good humbling moment, like I have a lot of experience, like even with TV wrestling, with indie wrestling and stuff like that. I'm not like a vet at any point, but I've been around for a little while. But you can still have those moments where somebody who is your senior, who has those experiences and that knowledge can impress on you, like, hey, you're blowing the spot, brother. Like, chill out, like if it
yeah,
happens, it happens. And if it doesn't happen, don't go expecting for it to happen because you're going to ruin
because
the whole
it's
magic.
it's the baby face's job to make that magic happen
Yeah.
at that point. If not, it's a blown spot for them. It don't look
Absolutely.
bad on us because we're paying attention to what's going on in the ring.
Definitely.
That's how you get the heat off of you completely.
So let's move to the other side of the coin. What kind of match do you absolutely not want to ref? What kind of matches do you see on the card and you're like, nope, not for me?
Hardcore matches, I refuse to do them. I will never.
Everybody says death match or hardcore matches. Everybody.
Before I got into WWE, long before I worked with a guy named Corporal Robinson from JCW, Juggalo Championship Wrestling.
I know Corporal Robinson.
I
I don't know him,
at
but I've heard of
that
him.
at that point, I had never done a hardcore match.
Yeah.
Never. Didn't even know that I knew that they existed on WWE, but that's it. I never seen it on the Indies. And he took a porcelain toilet.
Sorry, your audio cut out a little bit. Let's get that one more time.
I'm so sorry. Can you hear me?
It's okay. Yeah. He took a porcelain toilet.
He hit me with it.
Oh.
I was so mad because this was not a spot that was talked about. It just happened.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna lie to you, made the promoter pay me double. I was angry. I was very mad because I thought it was very unprofessional. If you're gonna do something like that, let somebody know. And it's porcelain. It hurt.
Yeah.
It hurt like hell. I was very upset. I was not happy. And I hate the concept of for one, hate the concept of blood.
Sure.
You don't know. I'm not saying this to be mean, but you don't know what people's conditions are.
I'm totally with you on that. Like, I like watching death matches. I like watching hardcore matches. I'm not interested in reffing them. And it's not because I'm like afraid of the weapons or afraid of the glass or anything. I just don't know where everybody's been. And it's not a judgment thing. I don't think you're a bad person. I don't assume that you have dirty blood or anything like that. I just don't want to worry about it. I don't want you to worry about my blood, any of that. Go ahead.
We do these shows on the independent circuit. They don't do blood tests.
Yeah.
You don't know what people have.
Before COVID, we didn't even check each other's temperature or anything, Who knows what somebody's got?
So you have to be cautious of this. And I've been cautious of this my whole entire career. Once I got out of WWE and I was able to at least say what I will and will not do,
sure,
I had earned that respect that I could do that. I'm telling you, when I see hardcore anything, it's like, nope. I'm not a fan of ladder matches. I had a bad experience at WWE with the ladder match. Sure. I was out there by myself, and it was Shelton and Christian. I did a ladder match 2010, 2010, and or 9, whichever one it was. But I had them by myself, and that's the first time that any referee had done a ladder match by themselves.
Yeah,
and it was like 27 minutes.
Was it the last time?
I think so, because it was so hard for me to give them times because they're in the ring doing this stuff on the ladder.
Right.
I think I gave them 20 minutes, 13 minutes, maybe 9, then 4, then go home. That was it because I couldn't get to them any other time. It's just, I don't know. It's just something about having the extra wherewithal. I'll do ladder matches and I'll do chair matches and stuff like that. But when it gets to be super hardcore, forget it. I'm not doing that. I will put my foot down. It's not happening.
Sure. I hear you. So we're kind of winding things down a little bit. Before we get going, I did want to ask, we talked a lot about different countries around the world that you've been to. Do you have a favorite country that you've visited so far?
Qatar is the most beautiful country I've ever been to in my life. Sure. Period. There is no other country that will ever be as beautiful as that. From the hotel to the food to the buildings to the arena, everything about QPW was mind blowing. But my favorite country to ever go to
is India.
Nothing better than India. No. I think it's because there's so many people. It's so overpopulated.
Yeah.
But they're the most overpopulatedly humble people that I've ever met in my life. And I truly mean that.
It's definitely something that I've always wanted to visit. Like India seems like it's, is different from the States as like Japan or something like that. It's like just like a whole nother world.
It is, because there's no stoplights, there's no stop signs, there's no real copping, there's no real crime. There's just hardworking
people living. Yeah.
Yeah. You see the most humble people doing I'd say this after I got back from India the first time. We are definitely the most spoiled country in the world. Absolutely. I love the United States. Yeah. I think the United States is wonderful. It's great. It's fantastic. But we are definitely the most spoiled. When you look at these Indians, man, and they see stuff on us, they're like, wow, And we take so much stuff for granted. And I do quite a bit. I'm in such a blessed position, but there's still a lot of times I take things for granted.
Sure.
But I go to India and I get a reality check.
Not to like bury any company or anything like that, but just strictly country experience. What's the worst trip that you've ever been on? Like, what's one country or city that you're not really interested in ever going back to?
I haven't had any real bad experiences.
That's great to hear. That's kind of how I feel. I've traveled around quite a bit, before wrestling, and like a trip is what you make of it, not necessarily like what the country brings to the table.
I'll tell you one thing. When I was in WWE, the one place that I never really wouldn't care to go again to is Poland.
Poland?
Yeah, they don't know black people. I'm not trying to mean they don't know culturally. They just don't know. They're not around African Americans or black people at all. So. Sure. I stayed in my hotel room. I went to the venue, did the show, went back to the hotel room. Didn't see anything in the town, and it was Polish New Year's when we went, so it was crazy in the streets. And I was told not to go anywhere. So
yeah,
if I never go back there, I wouldn't care.
I had a similar experience, not personally, obviously, but I just went to Japan last year with Game Changer Wrestling, and some of the deathmatch guys that I went with, Schlack in particular, has many, many tattoos, including face and neck tattoos. And I don't know if you're familiar or not, but like in Japan, if you have a tattoo, it means you're Yakuza. So like they do not accept people showing their tattoos in public. And he couldn't go to the gym. He couldn't work out. He couldn't do anything, like he had to walk around with a hoodie zipped up and his hood over his head everywhere that we went. It was wild. Our translator was telling him, like, tell the boys, what you have to get, stuff like that. Like it was rough.
Just because, culturally, there's just so many places that expect so many different things, I will say I made a mistake when I went to Qatar, or not Qatar, but Kuwait. Kuwait is a dry country.
Mm-hmm. And
I had no idea.
Did you bring alcohol?
Yeah,
oh no!
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I didn't even bring that much. I just bought like two little,
sure.
vodka thingies, 2 little baby bottles.
But they were not about it.
No, I got in trouble by my promoter, but that's just because he's like, did you bring alcohol? I'm like, yeah. He's like, no.
You can't do that here, brother.
They would have caught that in my bag. I would have went to jail for 3 days, no questions asked.
Ooh.
So I'm glad I didn't caught.
Yeah.
But that's something you learn. You don't know. That's why I tell everybody, if you're going somewhere overseas, make sure you do your research.
Yeah,
do your research on every place you go to, because you never know. You never know what you're gonna get yourself into going to these places. You know what I mean?
I was really lucky. We had an American a white guy that like lives in Japan and is just kind of like a liaison for wrestlers that come over. You know, like he actually sent us this like 4 or 5 page like document of like things to expect while we're there. And the one that like really stuck out to me the most that like can just apply to like all countries really is this is not the United States. They live by a different set of rules. They live by a different set of morals. And it is not your place or your purpose to come here and try and instill your morality or your laws on other people. That is the
Absolutely.
first way that you'll get on people's bad sides in another country.
Absolutely. And you got to remember, you're not in a familiar position.
Yeah.
When you go there, you're not there to, like, that's absolutely right. I'm not there to, when I go to these countries, I'm not there to instill whatever I have.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm coming over as a guest to their country. And when you get that in your mind, it comes out better, and fans appreciate you more, and your promoter appreciates you more. And you go in with the notion that you're there to do this job, and I'm going to kill myself to make sure my promoter knows how grateful I am to be in this position. But I'm not going to do anything else outside of that.
Yeah.
So,
anywhere left on your list that you're really like looking forward to? Any goals that you have left that you're really still trying to like cross off?
I got one goal in my mind.
What you got?
My goal is to, first of all, my goal is to work for SWE in Texas. I want to work for SWE in Texas.
Very cool. That's SWE, if you're listening.
Yeah, that's a goal of mine. They're growing in huge spurts. I don't know if you've seen anything on it, but it's Teddy Long and Rodney Mack and Jazz and James Beard and Tim Storm and all these guys.
Do you mind speaking out the abbreviation just in case people want to look it up?
I don't know the exact.
It's okay. It's okay. It's pro wrestling.
But you can look at. You can look it up. You can look it up on Facebook. SWE. That is what it goes by. SWE. Cool. The event that they're doing today is what, the 27th. Yeah. Today they have an event called SWE Cattle Carnage or something like that, and it's today. And they got a bunch of former WWE talent that's going to be there. Lacey Von Erich and Boogeyman and Mil Mertis is there, and there's Very cool. Many big names going to be in that I don't know the exact name, but you know, go look up SWE and you'll find
a ton of members of the herd down there in Texas, so I'm sure somebody will hear this and you know they can throw it out there or maybe put you in touch with who they need to put you in touch with.
But the biggest goal that I have is to go to Australia.
Yeah, that's a big one for me too.
If I can get to Australia and solidify my career in Australia, then I will possibly retire.
Sure.
But right now, I don't have no signs of retiring or anything. I mean,
that's the last inhabited wrestling continent for you, right? I mean, I've been
to every other continent.
South America, yeah. You've been to Europe. You've been to Asia. Last one. Better get there.
Then, you know, then what would be said about that is this is the best part about it. Mm. The only continent I ever did in WWE was North America and Europe. Everything else I've gotten on my own. So that's
pretty amazing.
That's something to be very proud of. And if I nothing else, I worked my tail off to get to something that most people will never do in their lifetime.
You know, while we're on the topic of continents and things like that, you know, we had mentioned Muhammad earlier, and I don't think I've ever really like extended how much I appreciate this to you. Like when you had added Muhammad into the group, then you know that was the last like inhabited continent for us to like be represented on as Zebra Talk. Like that was something that was a really big like pivotal moment for me as like the founder and the admin and all that stuff of realizing like how like I'm just some dude, right? But like the group has grown into this like monumental thing that spans countries and cities and continents, and like it was a really really like poignant moment for me. So thank you very much for doing that. That really meant a lot to me.
I had no idea, man. I had no idea. I just literally brought him into it because his passion. I want to tell you, when you think of someone that really wants to break into the business, his passion is huge. Let me tell you, after the show with us, that man cried on my shoulders.
Yeah.
He was so grateful just to have Justin King there as his trainer. And he cried on my shoulder. And at first I was like, why are you crying? Like in my mind. But then I thought about it like, dude, you're changing lives. You really are. You are changing people's lives without even knowing it. I don't even think about it like that. I never have. And it sunk into me that day. when he looked at me and he said, "It's the greatest moment of my life."
I was on a podcast with my buddy Ivan, who's a referee in Chile. He's a very, very good referee. He works for Cinco Luchas Clandestino. And when we were in our first year of Zebra Talk, I went to WrestleMania and I organized this like Zebra Talk breakfast. And I didn't tell anybody in the group that I was in communication with WWE refs and that I was trying to get them to come to it as well. I just told everybody in the group, show up if you want to. We're just going to have a big brother breakfast, basically. And only 4 people showed up. But 5 WWE refs came in like halfway through the breakfast, including Charles Robinson, who was like Ivan's like lifelong hero. And he, told me over this podcast that we were doing a few weeks ago, he's like, that was one of the biggest moments of my life. That's, one of definitely the biggest moment of my career. Like nothing's ever going to top that because, we lose sight of the fact that like we're based in the United States, we're capable of interacting with these people and seeing them, not on a regular basis, but on a somewhat regular basis. But, to a kid in Chile who probably had to like find wrestling on some random TV channel that, maybe only he got service every once in a while, like Charles Robinson, Mike Chioda, they're these like gods to him. So it's pretty cool to hear all of these stories. I think we're losing your audio. Are you okay? Did your batteries die in your headphones?
Oh, no, my brother called.
Oh, okay. Robert wanted to get in on the interview.
Yeah, Robert wanted to get in. But yeah, so I heard what you said, though. I can hear it from when I took it out. I can hear what you're saying. Listen, this is we have to. I have to tell myself this all the time. What we do in our lives as referees, even from me to you, my story, as normal as it is for me,
sure,
my story is monumental to many, many people. And I have to remind myself that I am on a different level than most people. And I have to remind myself to give that knowledge and give that wherewithal to people who ask me. I get messages all the time on Facebook and people want to know certain things. And I'm not above writing people and telling them, hey, can you watch this match? Sure, I'll watch it. The reason why I do that is because when I was breaking it, we didn't have that.
Yeah.
We didn't have those resources. We had the internet, but it wasn't like this. We didn't have the people that we could just jump in and speak to on a daily basis. I had to text Chad and hope for a text back, and but he would get back to me, but it would take time.
Sure.
And so nowadays, even with you've managed to do something that no one will ever do again. That is putting almost 1,000 people together that have the same common interest. Almost there, and you'll get there. But to take one idea out of your head and to blow it up the way you have. And my brother got his Zebra Talk tracksuit. He showed me it yesterday, and just the outpour of respect and camaraderie for you, it is amazing. And you have to remind yourself of that every single day when you're doing this, just like I do. We lose sight of it sometimes just because it becomes normal to us. But I'm grateful for you having me on this podcast because it does help people, and it will help people.
Absolutely.
And I've done my job at that point.
Speaking of helping people, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. But the last couple of minutes of the podcast, I like to every episode give my interviewees an opportunity to, just kind of talk about any company that they think, people should take a look at, any show that they were on at any point that, maybe there's a match that you really like that you think people should check out. But most specifically and most importantly, any wrestlers or even referees that are out there that you think are really just grinding and deserve an extra look from the community, but maybe they just haven't really like gotten themselves to that point, with their social media or whatever yet. Please take the opportunity. Also, include your socials if people want to reach out to you.
So I think that there's so much talent that is overlooked, especially in the overseas portion of things. They just don't get the opportunity to be seen.
Sure.
right now I got some mega international stars that I have that could totally be in anybody's company right now. Apollo, Brody Still, Mike Hughes Brody Still and Mike Hughes are both from Canada.
Mhm.
They're both amazing talent. Chris Rabber is by far, in my opinion, if not the top babyface in the world, one of the best wrestlers in the world. I
Sure.
mean, he did FCW for a little bit, but there was no justice to what
Mhm.
this man does. He is all over Europe. I mean, he is like the face of Europe.
Very cool.
Oh. Those guys are amazing. And Jay Thomas is in NXT UK. He's amazing. On his Facebook is Thomas JS,
Mhm.
but he's in there. Chris Sharp is over there too, and
Yeah.
Chris is someone who worked so hard to get to where he is. You know, he had to move. Those two are amazing talents. That
Seriously.
I think that I think WWE did a great job picking up the UK talent referees. You
Same.
know, as far as like independent referees, I really don't work with enough. You know, it's so hard for me because I don't. Most of the people I work with are brand new. I don't get to work shows. You know, I just worked the show with Mark Harris, who was a former WWE referee,
Sure.
but it
Yeah.
was just, and the other referee was Jazz. So
Very cool.
so it's just the three of us, you know. But I'm always working with someone who's already had the kick in the door. You know what I mean? So it's hard for me. Um, I have been watching MLW. I think MLW is looking pretty
Mhm.
good. Um, I don't really watch AEW.
Sure.
I don't watch WWE. I don't really watch any of that stuff.
But you know, you
But
mentioned MLW. We got Doug Markham over there doing his thing. He's really
yeah, and I worked with Doug Markham for a long time in Tried and True Pro Wrestling.
Mhm.
We worked together we still currently, you know, when they picks back up, but we've been working together since 2016.
Very cool.
So I've been working with Doug quite a bit and, you know, giving Doug advice, and Doug is like side by side with me. So kudos to him for getting the MLW. And I think that Mil Mertis right now, Mil Mertis is probably the best Mexican unsigned wrestler, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Ricky Banderas is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
WWE should give him a look. I mean, or AEW, somebody, because he's talented.
I'm sure he'll get swept up at some point after that run that he had in Lucha Underground. Like, you know, he's incredible.
Well, he's in MLW right now.
Oh,
But
okay.
I don't know if he
Excuse
has
me.
I don't know if he has a full time contract. I'm saying whoever picks him up needs to give him a contract.
Yeah.
You know, not just one offs or two offs. You know, because he's got talent, man. He came to Qatar Pro Wrestling, and I'm gonna tell you, man, what a talent, bro. And I don't say that. I'm trying to talent for me. I don't really pay attention to just because I'm a rep. Like I don't really look hard at the talent because I'm so focused on what I'm doing. But
Sure.
after watching MLW and watching him in QPW and all these places, man, he's definitely a great talent. I will say for referees, man, if you really, my opinion,
Mhm.
if you really want to learn how to be the greatest basic referee without stealing any gimmicks, which is like Charles gimmicks or Mike's gimmicks or anybody's gimmicks, Chad Patton is the person to watch.
Yeah.
I will say that for the rest of my career.
Yeah.
Chad and John Cone are the two best basic referees in the world.
Couldn't
When
agree
I say
more.
basic, I don't mean basic like as they're basic people. I mean like they just do the job. They don't have any gimmicks.
Yeah.
You know, those are two that you would want to watch and study and take notes. That's how I did it. Ladies and gentlemen, I watched here. I got this real quick. So I would take these right here. I'm gonna show you really fast. I would take like a old school Cyber Sunday or something like
There
that.
you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I pull out a DVD and I'll say, okay, let me watch Chad real quick.
Mhm.
Let me see what he does. You know, the Attitude Era, when that Attitude Era thing came out, I would watch him every week, study him day in and day out because he's the greatest basic referee in the world, period. And John Cole's not far behind.
It's very cool that you mentioned them because after I had my experience with, you know, them kind of like shooing me off of like following Kyoto so much, like obviously
Mm-hmm.
he's a great referee, but, you know, not stealing his like
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
started looking around at other, you know, like people to not necessarily like model myself after, but just kind of to study, like you're saying. And John Cohn and Chad Patton are two very, very much like standouts in my people that I study. And then, you know, more recently, as far as like new hires and things like that, I study Eddie a lot. and Daryl a lot because they are kind of the mold of like what WWE and NXT are looking for right now. You know what I mean? And it's
They're
like you were
not looking
saying,
for
a very basic referee.
right. You know that if you notice the difference between WWE referees and AEW referees, the AEW referees are involved in the matches.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I hate to say this, but they're like talent because they get excited. It's so movie. Nothing wrong with it. That's just what they want.
Yeah.
But as far as WWE goes, to be in the camera frame is such a bad thing. And
yeah.
You know, when you watch, like I say, I haven't watched Eddie. I've heard that he's solid. And Hornet, Daryl Sharma is it's always been one of my really good friends. We did India together. I know him from Canada. I spent a lot of time with him in Canada. But Hornet, he deserves to be a senior official, as they said now. He's got promoted because he understands it.
Yeah,
he gets
totally
it.
agree.
You know, I'm not saying anything else about any other referee in NXT because I don't know. But
Sure.
I would say off of him, he gets it. And
Absolutely.
Chad and John, they also, when John first came in, he was so aggressive. If you go back to 2006, when John Cone was first coming in and watched some of his matches, he was so aggressive. But if you notice over time, he's learned how to pattern himself. He's really gone down the path of
knows how to be authoritative without being aggressive.
Without being aggressive. Right. Totally. And Chad's always just been solid. Always. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, very cool. Thank you so much for your time today. We're going to go ahead and wind things down. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day. It's been great getting to learn some things from you, getting to hear your stories and things like that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening, for watching, however you're taking in this podcast. Please help me thank, Justin, give him a follow. Let's put over your socials real quick before we go.
So I am at Real Justin King 1 on Instagram. I am at Justin King 1 on Twitter, and I am at just Justin King on Facebook. I normally don't use my Twitter. I normally don't mess with my Instagram that much. I'm not internet
Don't
savvy.
Really need to, brother.
But Facebook, I am on all the time. Justin King, you'll see me in the picture standing behind Qatar, beautiful city lights. And if you need anything from me, message me, question about repping, please, by all means, question.
Seriously,
ask the questions.
folks, he is so humble and willing to take time to talk to you and pick things apart. And, we've discussed reffing and matches in the past, and I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for listening, for watching, however you're taking in this podcast. If you would like to support Zebra Talk or the Zebra Talk Fund, you can find us at prowrestlingtees.com/Zebra Talk. We've got all kinds of shirts. We've got all kinds of sweaters. We've got hats and beanies and pins, and we got tracksuits, like you were saying, all kinds of stuff. It all goes directly to the Zebra Talk Fund, which is a nonprofit charity that we started to help referees in need worldwide. If you would like to be on the Zebra Talk podcast, if you're a referee yourself, please shoot me an email at zebratalk123@gmail.com. That is also where you apply to the Zebra Talk Fund. If you need a little help traveling outside of your area, shoot us an email and we'll talk. You can find us at ZebraTalk123 on Instagram and Twitter. If you're not in the actual Zebra Talk group on Facebook and you're a referee, come on, man. I don't know what you're doing at this point. We got almost 1,000 people. Help us get there. You can find me. You can find Justin. I'm Robert Odie Brown on Facebook. I'm Odie1Canody on Twitter and Instagram. And thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for being here, Justin. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, guys. Have a good day.